Former middle school teacher, husband, father of two, and now a dead pedophile, was brutally murdered in his prison cell just 1 year before his release. This is the worst of the worst. Not only was he a middle school teacher, not only was he married with two young kids, his victims weren't just students, they were his son's girlfriends. However, just like many prisons, they don't put these piece of shit pedophiles in protective custody. They get beat up, extorted, stabbed, and poisoned all through their bid. Then they think they can go to a minimum security prison where everybody goes home within the next 8 years. However, the same rules apply. When somebody looks up and they're about to go home in 1 year after doing 20 years in the chain gang, they committed no other murders their entire time in prison, and then you put a pedophile in their cell and he's found strangled to death, that should tell you something. Let's get into this one. This piece of shit pedophile was brutally murdered in his prison cell, and his cellmate, who allegedly did the crime, goes home in under a year, finishing a 20-year sentence for second-degree murder. He had no other stabbings in the institutions, murders, strangulations, and after 20 long years, ready to go home in a minimum security prison, this is what you wake up to. This piece of shit. The dead pedophile's paperwork would read just like this. The warrant also states that Chomo Nichols posed as his teenage son on Facebook and asked the girl to make up sexual stories and made other requests, such as asking her to text message Nichols whenever she entered the shower. At least once after their alleged sexual encounters, the warrant also stated that Nichols told the teen girl to tell people she wanted to have sex if she was asked. Investigators say the incidents happened in Nichols' home in Huntersville. Before the police arrested Nichols, the victim's mother confronted Nichols, and she claims he himself called himself a pig. First of all, what the fuck? Why wasn't he locked up immediately? That just shows you right there. Like, he got lucky that it was just the mother that went and confronted him. Because knowing what we know now, you know, this man was going to be home in 15 years. The paperwork would go on to say, as a former middle school gym teacher, he was convicted of rape. He would be found dead in his cell at the Green Correctional Institution in North Carolina. The official report states he was strangled. The prison went on lockdown at 6:50 a.m. When officers discovered his body, he was 57 years old. He had been serving a 15-year sentence after admitted to repeatedly having sex with a 15-year-old girl that he groomed over social media. Evidence found in his home included explicit photos of the victim. He was scheduled for release in 2027, just over a year away. Like I say, prison has a funny way of time will never exist, only opportunity. You could be so close, but it never existed. You were gonna die, literally, before you went home. It didn't matter how close you went to the door. You were never getting out that motherfucker. What happens is, somehow these chomos make it to a minimum security unit and they start acting crazy. Like, hold on a second, like nobody's in there gonna hurt you. Because you have a lot of dudes in there that haven't been to any real places. They just did a little year or 2 years and they stayed in a minimum unit. They didn't have to live with these piece of shits, these little snaky little rats. And then you look and they put one in your cell, either you're like, yes, or you're like, fuck. Because either way, you know what it is. However, if you knew this piece of shit raped a 15-year-old girl in your community, was a school teacher, had kids, and was about to get out in less than a year, I mean, come on, man. You know, shit happens, right? Authorities believe he was killed by another inmate, 35-year-old Wilbur Baldwin. Baldwin himself was near the end of his sentence, also due for release in less than 2 years. He was originally in prison for second-degree murder. He had no write-ups, and he wasn't in any protective custody housing. Allegedly, the attack happened inside their shared unit. Nicholas wasn't stabbed, burned, or cut. He was strangled, a very personal way to kill somebody. Now, a lot of people will say, well, if I only have 1 year left, you know, that's right. That's the difference, is there's people that you're going to comment on and say, good job, inmate, keep up the good work. But then yourself say, what an idiot. However, is somebody an idiot if they feel that there is no way on earth I can let this piece of shit go home, knowing what I know now, or whatever it may be? You know, some people do it smoother. You know, some people want to get caught. Some people want to make a statement. To me, that's almost better for the chomo. You know, think about it. You just did all that time. You're about to go home. You think you did it. No matter what happened, all the extortions, the stabbing, the shit in the face, the brooms, whatever has happened to you over the course of your bid, you're seeing this light at the end of the tunnel. Except now, everything's fading to dark because you're being strangled to death. Allegedly, officers would open the door around 6:50 a.m. to find the dead chomo Ernest Nichols unresponsive on the floor near his bunk. His body is limp. There are deep impressions around his neck, discoloration consistent with strangulation. Resuscitation fails, he is declared dead in the prison cell. Earlier in the cell, at 6:45 a.m., Nicholas shifts around in the cramped cell space, moving between the bunk and the wall. The killer makes his move, stepping forward, firing hands up to seize Nicholas's throat. At 6:46 a.m., allegedly the struggle begins. In tight quarters, Nicholas fights to fight free. But we know the chomos ain't gonna do nothing. Baldwin clutches at his neck, pulling downward, pushing his face towards the mattress, squeezing with both hands. The choke is sustained and deliberate as Nichols' resistance weakens. He said, go to sleep, man. I seen where dudes would be like, why did they put you in here? They're so fucking mad that, you know, like they're literally killing the chomo and asking the chomo, why the fuck would they put you in here, man? But it's just, there's no way that they're gonna give somebody such a intricate, easy trophy. And a lot of times what'll happen is these chomos will do things knowing after all the torture they went through, they'll start reading little books or, you know, watching kid shows or start reading their paperwork or get on a cell phone. And somebody that's just been up the road for 15, 20 years, shit, it could be 5, 10 years, it doesn't matter, just went to some serious places, sees that. They don't understand any of that. They don't understand how he's even able to breathe at all. And then you house with him, it's just a stain on your soul. It really is. You can never, ever commit crimes in your life and go to prison and walk by a child molester and say to yourself, well, I'll go home soon, and then get out there and talk about what you would do. Because you won't do shit. You'll just write a comment saying, good job, inmate. Unfortunately, that's a sacrifice. These chomos hurt kids. They come home, do it again. And the only way they get true justice and stop offending is by getting that infinite prison sentence. And he would get that infinity and beyond, that Buzz Lightyear treatment. At 6:47 a.m., allegedly that was when Nicholas's breathing would slow. His body would slacken, and that's when they think that the grip was released around the chomo's lifeless body. Officers would arrive at 6:50 a.m. It'd be too late. The chomo's already dead. The cell is sealed. The unit goes into lockdown. A murder charge is later filed against Baldwin. The chomo, Ernest Nichols, 15-year sentence, convicted in 2011, release scheduled September 2027. Damn, they already moved him out of the Department of Corrections that fast. He's been locked up 22 years and 5 months. Incarceration status, inactive. His last movements were death. No protective custody for this one. He's just expired. His actual release date was 10/5/2025 when he was strangled to death. His projected release date would have been 9/28/2027. Game over. You hurt so many children, betrayed the trust of parents. You're the most evil as it gets. Working at a school, tricking your son and all them to bring children to you so you can consume your evil appetites. You hurt a bunch of children in 2008 and get strangled for it in 2025. That's the way it always works. You will never, ever be able to outrun karma. It's always going to come. And it always comes when it's the most inconvenient. Stay out, stay free, and leave our kids alone. Us.